Yo, what's going on, you guys? Frost here, and today we are making a Critical Ops weapons tier list. I did say something about me making this tier list because, for the time I've mostly been playing it, and at the time of recording this, right now, the a lot of weapons haven't been adjusted yet. So until we get to that point, I kind of want this just as a reference tool of what people, what I'm saying, mostly have been using, as well as just the what I'm saying, the optimal weapons that are in the game, because I do think that a lot of weapons are viable, but just in the current moment there's just a lot of weapons that are just overshadowing the potential of these said weapons. So first things and foremost, I have to say this disclaimer: this is my opinion. I am allowed to have an opinion. I am allowed to say things that I feel that I feel that are, objectively how are right and whatnot. So if there's something that you want to move up or down into, just let me know in the comments down below. Nothing is concrete of what I've said. I am mostly going based off my mental and the statistics that I basically have seen, and just how the weapons feel overall. I am someone that plays on PC, as you kind of can slightly tell. So a lot of this can be kind of portrayed in a way where it doesn't match up to how you feel, but you just kind of have to walk with me, twin, if that makes sense. So anyways, I'm gonna try and not be too, like, whenever I'm describing some of these weapons, I'm gonna try not to be, take too long on them, but I will introduce you to the tiers. S tier is meta, so basically what people mostly will use, and these weapons are good at what they do, and essentially you will see this majority of your games regardless of rank. Sub meta is weapons that can go against the meta but may not be as strong as them, but in certain situations they can perform just as well as the meta. Good weapons is B tier, where you can kind of use them in a sense, but there is mostly a meta, kind of like you can kind of feel the meta prowling over it, and you can only use these in certain situations, but they wouldn't be as optimal as using them as using a sub meta weapon. C tier is meh, a weapon that you can kind of use but you don't go out of your way to use. Outside of it, you can kind of lump this in the same good-ish, but I think good portrays itself as a good balanced-ish weapon that maybe mania boost or not, but meh isn't really there yet, kind of just needs adjusting and whatnot. And D is not optimal, meaning that I wouldn't really recommend using this weapon, or most times, unless you absolutely are just fiending to use it, if that makes sense, and even still you're kind of losing out. With that being said, let's start with the P250, which I really believe is not only really a good pistol, but it is a sub meta pistol. I don't think it's crazy meta, and obviously this is mostly going to be used for like pistol round, but you do have a really good accuracy base and damage wise off of this pistol alone. So I do think the P250 is really good. The GSR 11 or 1911 is pretty good. I think a lot of people were saying like the GSR was, kind of fell off, but I think the only potential that GSR has is really good one tap range potential. But a lot of other weapons can, like a lot of the pistols can kind of perform this as well as the GSR. You kind of have to make it pretty good to, make it be viable against the submetal. Dual MTXs, in my opinion, are good. I think dual MTXs are good because they're able to put out pressure. You're able to move and kind of spam with them, full out of them basically. And from what I've been getting hit to, these things are just fucking crazy. But obviously, it pistol and even in eco, they're pretty good, but they're not really the most optimal use. XDs, in my opinion, I'm just someone that tried to use this weapon, and I know a lot of people kind of use it. I think it's meh. I do think that maybe there should be a little bit of a basis, because I wouldn't pick this gun over these, if that makes sense. I think the XD45s are just not really as good, but you can only use them in certain situations that kind of feel viable. The MR96 for sure is meta. It's not even close. It's a very good it's a very good pistol that gives you good one tap range. You have really good long range capability, and it is so satisfying getting that one tap damage output basically from that range. On top of that, it has really good damage output in long ranges. So in my opinion, you can kind of use this as like a kind of like a pseudo hand cannon, if that makes sense, and still be able to win eco rounds and just certain fights and whatnot. The Deagle, in my opinion, is sub meta. I do think that it's mostly in the line of the same of the MR96, This one is mostly for giving in middle range and medium ranges and can be used long range, but not as accurately as the MR96. I do think that the Deagle is really good, but I just think that like its damage output in longer ranges goes up to like what 3 to 4 taps sometimes. So that, like I said, taking that over the MR96 and its like accuracy capability, I think the Deagle is a good mid ground. And then we're moving on to our SMGs, and we have the MPX. I haven't really used a lot of the MPX, but when I have, I just feel like it's just not really as optimal, even for its price. I would just much rather use a pistol that would just mostly have more damage, and it's just kind of how it is. You know, I just don't think that this gun is as good. Maybe I could be wrong about that, but I just don't think it's as good. The MP5 is kind of in the same line, but I do think that there is some merit to the MP5 to some degree. But in my opinion, like I said before, I just wouldn't spend $1,000 on these SMGs knowing that I won't get this like a good damage output out of them. And it would just have to be situational use that I would kind of have to desperate buy, which like I said, I just wouldn't do. The MP7 is meta, bro. It's meta in the sense of it's a good cheap gun that has good accuracy, good range, as well as being able to spray, have good RPM and a TTK. And it's pretty much what everyone is using because of just how versatile it is. And it just needs to be adjusted so that way you can't really be as accurate moving and then hitting shots in long range, and it does need a range nerf to a degree, but that's why right now the MP7 is just really good. And then you also have the Vector, which I shouldn't even have to, I would put this ahead of these two ahead of the MR96. The Vector is absolutely disgusting, the best SMG, probably one of, if not the best weapon in the game, because of its range, its RPM, TTK. It can do everything you would want a weapon to do tenfold, and that's just something that like just needs to be adjusted. Weapons that cost that low should not be performing that well. I'm pretty sure they have enough data to figure that out. The P90 sits at a weird spot for me, and I do think that it's a sub-meta SMG. It's really good, but I just think that compared to the Vector, it just doesn't hold weight. It does shoot 950 RPM, and I just think that the P90 in general is just a slightly ish better, like a different version of the Vector, but there are some things that it falls under. It has a larger ammo pool, but I think it just suffers from the idea of it trying to be like the Vector, but it just sadly doesn't feel that way. But it can go against the Vector, if that makes sense. And now we're going to be moving on to your favorite category, shotguns. I'm kidding. And mostly shotguns right now are just simply not good. The FP6 is just, I don't know. I think generally shotguns do need some sort of like kind of damage buff to a degree. Not really a range buff, but a damage buff because of the armor system. I think it's meh. Like I said, it's situational, and those situations are close corners, and you have to be closer up. The same thing with what's this weapon called? I forgot what it's called. Give me a sec. The M1887, the same thing. I just feel like it does more damage. It feels outwards of the FP. I could be completely wrong about that, by the way. I'm just, you know, spitballing there. But these weapons just don't really feel good to use because of the armor system. And that's just what it feels for me. Also, the KSG isn't really in this list. The KSG is going to be B tier because I think there is some merit, I think there is some merit to the KSG 100%. So I think the KSG is a solid B tier, but it falls under why I said these shotguns just aren't really as good. And the Super 90 is also pretty good as well. But as I said before, shotguns just don't really feel as optimal to use right now because of the armor system, but the Super 90 is redeeming in that quality. So now, in moving on to everyone's favorite category, the assault rifles. And starting off with the SA, it's not optimal. It's good in its own right. You can make do with it, but I just wouldn't pick it over stuff like the Vector or the MP7, or just like, I just wouldn't risk it. I do think that if they made it a little bit more accurate, it could make this gun a little better. And I think they're scared to overtune it, because if they overtune it, then we'll have a different type of meta, and that's going to be crazy. So the AR 15, I think, is good. I think for a rifle, you get good solid accuracy. The recoil is a little wackadoo, but the amount that you get really for it is you get a good mid-range rifle that even has a scope. And I do think it is a much more better option. It is a much more better option to use outside of kind of just a lot of the weapons in this tier list. But I won't put this in sub meta because the AR-15 just feels a little weird when it comes to it, and it's just not as, you know, good, to say the least, if that makes sense. But it can hold its weight. The M4, man, I hate to really put this weapon in like C tier because it just needs adjusting. I would say the M4 is sub meta, but the worst sub meta weapon, because obviously you have a weapon that has 2-tap headshot range, right? But I think they need to like reduce its spread, because it just needs to be adjusted. It just needs to be adjusted. The weapon just feels a little inconsistent sometimes, and the range honestly kills it, turns it into a pea shooter. But I do think that there is good merit to using this weapon in certain ranges. And sadly, the M4 cannot, you know, expose its ability to do that said mission. So the AK-47, my beloved, my whole heart, my snuggle wuggle push, my honey pie, is meta. I'm sorry about that. But it is meta. It's high meta. You have 1-tap potential on a $2,500 weapon that is really good across mostly all ranges if you know how to control its recoil. Very rewarding weapon. Probably one of the most well-tuned weapons in this game. Like, I'm not kidding. Like, I know there's people out there that's probably going to be mad about the AK and whatnot, but the amount of potential this weapon has is just insane if you're good at controlling its recoil and whatnot and understanding the spray control on it. S tier, I couldn't recommend it more. The Scar, in my opinion, the Scar is really good. I would put this as at a lower meta. The Scar is really good. It does shoot a little slower, but man, it's a cannon and you get good range. But it's probably low meta. I would put this sub meta, high sub meta, if honestly anything, because it can compete against these weapons here. But having what 25 bullets in the mag, and I do feel like I can never really get the weapon scope to work as well, but it does work, and I do think that there is some redeeming qualities to the Scar. The HK46 also is sub meta and a lot more higher than the M4 here. A lot more higher than the M4 mostly, and that is mostly because the HK is so redeeming. It's a laser beam on top of the fact that it has good like damage potential, probably the highest damage potential of any weapon in this game. And without like that is just like, it would be good tier, but because of everything in its qualities, I would say the only reason why it's sub meta is because of its RPM. It doesn't shoot as fast, so you wouldn't really use this a lot, and it's kind of expensive. But when you do use this weapon, holy shit, like, it is just beautiful. And then yeah, we have the SG, and there's no introduction. It is the best weapon in the game. I don't need to explain myself why the SG is the best weapon in the game. You have the qualities of an AK, but even more accurate, and you have 30 rounds. You feel me? A good RPM, great damage. Like, you pretty much get your money's worth from buying this gun. You're fully committed to an SG. You're going to get your money's worth unless you just die, and like I said, you kind of just spend a lot. The AUG, sadly, oh man, this one's hard, and it's not hard to judge, but I have to put this in the good tier. I do think that it can be sub meta, but if it's sub meta, it is the worst sub meta weapon because of just its recoil. It just feels weird, but I do think if you can get around it, this weapon has great redeeming qualities. I'm gonna put it in sub meta because I do think that it's a good weapon overall, but it's kind of just troll because it just, man, it just doesn't feel great to use. So I don't know. I can't really co-sign the AUG. I would put it like next to the Deagle, but that's mostly about it. the TRG, or at least the Scout, in my opinion, is a very good sniper, a very high, tier sniper. Obviously, it's good. It's very well balanced. You get good damage, good 2-tap potential, and 1-shot potential to the head. Very good sniper. I would put it in sub meta, but that would be mostly just like it being in the rotation of other weapons. It's good counter. It's good counters for, like, the revolver or anything like that. You just want to have some range damage, you can do that. I do think the Scout is good, if not probably the best B tier weapon that you could ever put your hands on, outside of like the AR-15. The M14, in my opinion, is good. I do think that the M14 is good. It's a good spammable weapon. It's like 2-tap, I think 2 to 3-tap, and pretty much is good at applying pressure. But you don't really see a lot of people rocking this weapon because you have to invest a lot of money into it and pray to God that you can stay alive to do it. And it's just really fast. I do think that the pressure can be put into the weapon, and yeah, I just think that the M14 is pretty good, but you don't really see a lot of people using it because obviously there's better snipers in the lineup. The SVD is meh. I think it does what the M14 does, but it just hits harder and it shoots slower, and it's like, well, why would I have a weapon that shoots much slower, has the potential of the M14, you know what I'm saying, but probably just has more range? It's just really not a weapon that I will go out of my way to use. And if anything, it's a high meh tier, if that makes sense. I just don't think the SVD holds a lot of weight, if that makes sense. I'm not saying it's a bad weapon. There's just not a lot of weight to really be used. And that could just be me being wrong, but I'm just being completely honest about it. And then the last weapon, and not the least, everyone's favorite, the Euratio. And it's meta. It's in my opinion, the Euratio is probably one of the most well-balanced snipers I've used in gaming history. And I know people are going to look at me weird, but I gotta explain something. You have to aim a little higher on the chest to get your damage output for the 1-shot. You can't just aim chest anywhere and get the 1-shot. On top of that, it is just a very rewarding sniper that even punishes people longer ranges that are just peeking too much. It doesn't feel like as if it's unfair. It feels like you have to have a little bit of skill to understand this weapon, and you're investing a lot of money to put out that damage output. So I do think the Euratio is meta, and for sure stands, tried and true. A weapon that has always been the most consistent it can be whenever possible. And that's the tier list. Take a look at this. Let me know what you think. Let me know what you would have moved up, moved down. It was a lot of fun making this, and I'm pretty sure I'll end up having to update that as time goes on, depending on how weapons get adjusted in the armor system. But outside of that, I had a lot of fun. So yeah, thank you guys for watching. Let me know how you feel below about the weapons, and yeah, peace.